So just a couple of thoughts from me and also obviously from OMD EMEA at large. We are one of the largest investors in media, so we invest about $19 billion across EMEA, across 65 countries. So quite a broad view in terms of representing the depth and breadth of clients that we have within OMD. First and foremost, I think it's important to remember, and I hope I'm not teaching anyone to suck eggs, but advertisers invest in marketing to deliver growth. And what is so fantastic about the ad tech opportunity is it really gives us greater accountability. But let's just go back to the investing in marketing to deliver growth point. And that really is that now more than ever before, advertisers are seeing marketing as an investment and not just as a cost, which I think is critically important. And obviously with more financial directors and CPOs sitting at the top table, that is becoming more acute than ever before. But companies, and it has been shown, and there's oodles of evidence around this, companies that invest in marketing and sales capabilities drive above market growth. And we can see across the breadth of our clients that really marketing does help protect price premium and a whole host of other attributes for advertisers. And more recently, actually, Boston Consulting said that changing consumer behavior is set to generate 1.5 trillion of growth from 2013 to 2016 across the G20 market. So I really think that a very healthy ecosystem is at play there. And of course, we must remember that a huge proportion of investment is actually focused on brand building activity. Hopefully the financial crisis, the 6 years of hell are well and truly behind us, and we can see a lot of advertisers now increasing their investment in brand building activity. And there's a whole host of empirical evidence, either from our own research or more broadly from the IPA data bank, which shows us that actually the percentage of proportion of budget invested in branding is significantly greater when you look at the top quartile of brands when it comes to any kind of ROI numbers. So I think very, very healthy figures there. And in terms of percentage reporting very large revenue gain, interestingly, an increasing number of brands reporting additional investment in emotional versus rational advertising. And I don't need to tell any of you if you're familiar with either the John Lewis Christmas advertising or the Edeka Christmas advertising in Germany. One can see how storytelling in terms of retail brands more specifically is really gaining a lot of traction with a lot of emotional communication and not necessarily any rational communication, which I think is a very interesting development and only set to continue. TV obviously plays a critical role in brand building, and TV is in rude health in many markets. Now, obviously, we can see amongst certain cohorts that it is threatened, but also amongst certain cohorts, it's in a very healthy place. And the Thinkbox UK produce a lot of research and IPA again, more broadly, showing that brand response TV actually is a very effective driver of long-term response and recall. And really a lot of recent data that supports that strength, especially when compared with other opportunities. And also more recently, we've seen more digital brands and more pure players, and we're seeing a lot of this actually at OMD, a lot of pure players coming to TV in terms of a vote of confidence, understanding that it is very, very effective in terms of rapid cover build over a very short period of time. Which really is, in huge demand for certain advertisers who need a lot of rapid cover within, say, 48 hours. And this is contributing to a record 5 billion investment in terms of sterling number for the UK TV market. So nothing really to complain about there. And obviously, just as a reminder, we all are familiar with the rudiments of building strong brands. And this is gaining a lot of sort of conversation and a lot of traction, especially when one looks at these rudiments and whether or not some of the newer players, be it Instagram or Snapchat, can actually deliver on these advertiser needs. Obviously, differentiation is absolutely critical, and even more so now in an increasingly cluttered place and cluttered marketplace. And again, not only tangible but also intangible differentiation is incredibly important for advertisers, and to convey that to obviously there's certain cohorts, most relevant cohorts. Positioning is another area which, again, is gaining even more traction, because actually, if you do not have a clear positioning as a brand, you're kind of in a little bit of a vulnerable place. And what we're seeing now with increased fragmentation within the media world, there is an opportunity to reinforce your own brand positioning and your own brand personality with just the sheer channel choices and platform choices that you make. So that whole ecosystem is becoming more critically important to mine as channel selection becomes more sophisticated. And then, of course, purpose. Purpose is incredibly important now that brands are not only seeking profit, but purpose as well, and that balance is becoming more important. Accessibility and consistency speak for themselves. And then, of course, the importance of storytelling, which I've touched on, but obviously more important than ever, and even more important in a multi-device world, as we really have to hone the opportunity of transmedia storytelling, because that really is the next sweet spot, which we've only just started to mine and talk about. And of course, in terms of TV, major TV events are still a massive draw and a massive brand building opportunity for advertisers, whether it's still the Super Bowl and obviously our involvement with the Pepsi halftime show, being able to communicate in a very differentiated way to over 112 million viewers. That cannot be sniffed at. And then, of course, more closer to home, Downton Abbey, and of course the British Bake Off. And you're talking about huge TV events that are not just obviously siloed in their attraction. There is an incredible amount of obviously social amplification that can be gained from these opportunities, as everyone is probably well aware of. But that really is, the sweet spot of what advertisers are looking for. That social amplification cannot be underestimated. So finding these specific opportunities which actually give a brand an opportunity to enter sort of cultural conversation or cultural fabric of a market really almost have no price. However, TV is being redefined before our very eyes. Let's not deny that. And I believe, and a lot of OMDers believe, that TV rapidly is becoming an app ecosystem. I do disagree with some of the panel members before me who said that maybe it isn't. Research that we have, especially from anyone aged 30 and under, is that they are incredibly comfortable with the app ecosystem, and there is no reason why they can't easily navigate that through the large television at home. I think that many of them actually sleep like this. So, it's really not a big deal at all. In terms of, someone else said as well that youngsters in particularly, again, I would say millennials and below, are delivery agnostic. So they don't have those preconceived or definitions that we have with regards to certain viewing or screen consumption modes and consumption usages. So it's definitely much flatter, much more agnostic, and I think we should just land a point, and I know that some other people have mentioned that today, that is the world that we're living in, and let's just deal with it. And I think it's very interesting that most recently the Brit Awards, another record number with a live stream on YouTube hits over 1 million views. I think it was about 850 thousand last year. So you can see, all the stats are really supporting the evidence. And of course, Sky Q, with their fantastic recent launch in the UK, saw it everywhere. Absolutely brilliant, and further endorses the sort of flat, democratic content consumption across devices. And more recently, towards the end of last year, obviously Disney launching Disney Life, and really understanding that consumers want their content anytime, any place, anywhere, and that is where they are going to navigate around. So it is up to everyone in terms of broadcasters and platform players to basically deliver on that. And then, of course, more broadly, you have ITV Hub. So what do we want from broadcasters, content owners, platform operators as marketing becomes increasingly data-driven? Well, first and foremost, we want more data and insight integration. I still think that a lot of people within these companies are quite closed when it comes to actually sharing their data. Some are open, which is fantastic, and we're getting direct API feeds now from the Googles and Facebooks, Spotifys and makers of this world into our planning systems, which is really helping us deliver better insight. We obviously want improved content for specific audiences because there is value in niche audiences, as anyone will tell you, and there is always, a key for every lock. So very, very important to focus on that. Format flexibility and testing. We recently managed to film the whole of the Pepsi commercial within Empire over in the States, which was a first, but we want to do more of that. So we're encouraging a lot of broadcasters and content owners to come to us and literally test new formats and be incredibly flexible. We want uniform trading currency across platforms because we're still dealing with apples, bananas, and pears, which is incredibly frustrating when you're trying to do a proper post-campaign analysis for clients. We need greater transparency and accountability. Obviously, we are faced with a huge ad blocking threat. I think it's costing advertisers about 50 billion in 2016, something that we need to get to grips with. So greater transparency and accountability is very, very important, as we need to know exactly how advertising and marketing is performing. And then, of course, increased supply chain automation. We cannot welcome that more. And some people say, oh, but isn't that going to threaten an advertising, in a media agency? Well, no, because it seriously gives us the opportunity to actually increase our value contribution to clients, especially at the higher end. And there are similarities there with regards to the financial ecosystem. So we can talk about that later if people are around after the panel. So what is the likely impact then on TV? Oh, it's got a life of its own. So what is the likely impact then on TV advertising spend of richer viewer data, better audience segmentation, and more granular targeting? Well, of course, there will be better cross-platform targeting, more effective broadcast ad frequency control, because frequency capping is a real nightmare and can actually, obviously, upset the audience, and that is not what we want to do, especially with lots and lots of ad-blocking conversations taking place, and minimum wastage. And what we're seeing is amongst certain verticals, be it travel, finance, automotive, we're actually testing the benefit of more addressable advertising with some of these particular advertisers, and we're seeing some very healthy returns. More specifically with PSA, Peugeot Citroën, we're working with AdSmart. We're dealing with a lot of dynamic creative, particularly to market certain models to certain cohorts and then drive them into specific dealerships. And the recall numbers on those tests are very, very healthy indeed. So there are many, many different opportunities that we're testing at the moment on behalf of our advertisers and building up a bank of learnings. But just in terms of concluding some of my thoughts, consumers obviously do have different content needs at different times, although the trend really is clear. Consumer demand, obviously they want on demand. That is an absolute given. They want, what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and where they want it. And I'm no different, and I'm a millennial. And they want it personalized. So obviously the recommendation engines are gaining momentum and gaining in importance because that is becoming a basic hygiene too. And then immersive, very, very important to actually almost lose yourself, especially if you're in a lean back situation with the big screen at play in the living room. And then in terms of advertiser opportunity, this is only just touching the surface. Obviously cross-device, especially as it pertains to transmedia storytelling, which I touched on before. Diversity of messages. And actually, thankfully, production costs are coming down. So in terms of being able to deliver a dynamic, creative proposition, we can actually do that now quite cost-effectively. So very, very excited about that. And then engagement technology. Anyone who attended Barcelona or recently South by knows that VR has landed very much in our space, and huge opportunity to actually take advantage of that so that actually when it comes to any big events, they can come to you in your living room. So those were just a couple of thoughts on me, and bang on time.